They first appear to be simply contrails, coming from high-flying jet airplanes. But these trails linger in the sky for many hours, some for even an entire day, forming an artificial cloud. Some researchers refer to them as chemtrails. The theory is that chemtrails are being used in conjunction with HAARP. By spraying metal oxides into the air above enemy skies, then directing ELF waves from HAARP to heat those metal oxides, the temperature of the sky is raised to more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit, preventing the accumulation of water vapor that would otherwise form clouds and produce rainfall. The ELF waves HAARP produces bounce off the ionosphere and are able to curve around the Earth over the horizon to the ground, making any point on the globe well within reach.
One of the dangers in spreading chemtrails is that it acts as a desiccant and further dries the air. In other words, these chemical particulates can dry up the atmosphere and induce drought.
And in China, the full horror of Monday's earthquake is starting to unfold. As rescuers push to the heart of the disaster, they're finding entire towns virtually obliterated. According to one report, the death toll is now well over 20,000 and rising by the hour.
The blueprint for HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
What does HAARP do? HAARP is a large antenna where we beam radio frequency energy up into the upper atmosphere, and we create on a small scale what the sun normally does.
The assignment came that the Navy and the Air Force were to manage the program.
Applications discussed in the patents included destroying missiles. Communications control and disruption were included. There were some other ideas, both to possibly modify weather and finally to lift a portion of the upper atmosphere further out into space where hopefully it would be able to deflect missile trajectories.
In 1983, I did radio tomography with 30 watts, looking for oil in the ground. I found 26 oil wells over a 9-state area, and 100% of the time was accurate with just 30 watts of power beaming straight into solid rock. HAARP uses 1 billion watts beamed straight into the ionosphere for experiments. Picture these strings on the piano as layers of the earth. Each one has its own frequency. What we used to do is beam radio waves into the ground, and it would vibrate any strings that were present in the ground. We might get a sound back like, and we'd say, that's natural gas. We might get a sound back like, and we say that's crude oil. We were able to identify each frequency. We accomplished this with just 30 watts of radio power. If you do this with 2 billion watts, the vibrations are so violent that the entire piano would shake. In fact, the whole house would shake. In fact, the vibrations could be so severe underground that could even cause an earthquake.
HAARP can create some of the effects that the sun creates that are similar to the aurora borealis.
HAARP can paint designs in the sky, if you will. You know, it can take the beam and move it in any pattern that the scientist who's doing an experiment might want to do.
As well as strong aftershocks, rain has increased the dangers of the rescue effort.
Conspiracy theorists believe HAARP is responsible for triggering earthquakes in enemy territories, like Iran, China, and rogue parts of Afghanistan over the past 3 years. U.S. military conducted experiments to bring weather to the battlefield. October 1966. The Vietnam War is in full swing. U.S. military scientists are devising a way to slow down enemy forces using the weather.
U.S. had gone from advisor status to in-field combat status, and we're not doing well. As a result of not being able to make progress on the ground, the U.S. went to bringing the battle into the atmosphere above the battlefield.
The Air Force employed a groundbreaking military directive called Project Popeye.
Project Popeye was a weather modification program that involved cloud seeding, and the idea was to produce or exaggerate the monsoon rains that are traditional in that region.
Experiments are carried out beforehand with the military aircraft dropping silver iodide crystals in clouds over a strip of the Laos Panhandle, east of the Belovans Plateau in the Sekong River Valley. 50 cloud seeding runs are conducted. 82% of the clouds seeded produce rain within a brief period.
So Project Popeye then became Operation Popeye. It became a proper military program during the Vietnam War.
The goal of Operation Popeye was to extend the monsoon season and create an inordinate amount of rainfall by seeding clouds over the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
The Ho Chi Minh Trail was the primary supply route by which the North Vietnamese Army really supplied its troops that were operating in combat forces operating in South Vietnam.
Operation Popeye's objectives are to soften road surfaces on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, cause landslides along roadways, and wash out river crossings.
They flew over 2,600 missions from a period of 1966 to 1972, and it's believed that it did exacerbate the amount of rainfall and probably extended the monsoon season by 30 to 45 days.
As well as strong aftershocks, rain has increased the dangers of the rescue effort.
Operation Popeye showed that weather can be brought to the battlefield as rain. But can it also be weaponized in the form of a hurricane? Some say it already has.
Some people believe that Katrina was weather warfare at its most potent.
You know, with the WikiLeaks thing came out, and it was revealed that Pakistan was allegedly aiding Taliban attacks on coalition troops in Afghanistan. Pakistan's widely seen as a hotbed of Islamic extremism, and the globalists, the Western power elite, would love nothing more than to be able to get a firmer grasp on this country, to take control of this country, which is in a crucial area in the world. But even if this wasn't caused by HAARP, the globalists are going to take advantage of the situation in Pakistan. There's a very good book by the author Naomi Klein called Shock Doctrine, which is subtitled The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. And in this book she talks about the numerous examples of the globalists, the Western multinationals, the Western power elite, using natural disasters to implement massive changes and to financially get a stranglehold on countries around the world. So even if the floods in Pakistan weren't caused by HAARP, then you can bet that the Western power elite are going to be moving into that country. And the article that caught my eye this morning was entitled World Bank to lend $900 million to Pakistan. Whenever you see the World Bank, you know exactly what their game is. Their game is to get these countries into slavery. And that's what's happening here in Pakistan. There's been a disaster. The World Bank are going to lend money to the country, and the country is going to be indebted to these globalist banks. And the people of Pakistan will have to pay back these loans for God knows how long. The global elite will now have financial control of the country. And as the infrastructure of Pakistan's been destroyed, no doubt, innumerable Western corporations will be moving in there to rebuild basic functions like the water supply, the electricity supply, and things like this. Because once you control these things, then you control the people and you control the country.
A country widely seen as a reluctant ally in the war on terror. Now with the flooding, the stakes may be even higher.
I don't think it will happen, but I think we need to plan for a worst-case scenario, a nightmare scenario. And that nightmare scenario is an al-Qaeda, Taliban-type takeover of the government.
Already weak and unpopular before the floods broke, Pakistan's government's been slow to get aid to where it's needed. Keeping the country from drowning in its distress is crucial to U.S. policy.
An extremist government in Pakistan would have its finger on the atomic weapons arsenals.
Hardline Islamist groups have been helping flood victims, but the battle for hearts and minds has by no means been lost, according to America's current ambassador in Pakistan.
Stories about extremist organizations being the only players out there are greatly exaggerated.
What's not overstated is the scale of the disaster. There are millions still in Pakistan struggling to survive.
It works like this. First of all, you create the problem, but you get someone else to be blamed for it. You then report that problem through the media in the way you want it reported, because the media is owned by the same people that own the banks and etc. You get the public to react to your problem by saying something must be done, this can't go on, what are they going to do about it? And at that point, they, who have covertly created the problem and blame someone else, who've gleaned that reaction of do something, then offer the solution to the problems they have created.